suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a Board Certified Behavior Analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And I was just saying to Kelby, don't you love it when we have a Monday off? Isn't that a wonderful thing? Except when you have to work on Tuesday, because then you don't have all the time on Monday to do all the things that you would have. So I feel like I'm running to catch up with myself today. So you're going to forgive me, and it's live today, right? It's live every day, but it's going to be more live today than it's been in a while. In any case, thrilled to be here with you. We're going to be talking about autism for the next 2 hours, and I welcome all of you to be here. People will say to us, I had a wonderful opportunity over the weekend, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but people say, 2 hours? What do you have to talk about in 2 hours? And as you know, I get down to the last couple of minutes and I go, wait, we just haven't been able to fit it all in. Thank heavens we get to do that 3 times a week. So, but anyway, we are going to talk about autism from a 360-degree perspective. Every possible thing that could come up if you are a member of the autism community, it's all fair game, right? We talk about it here, including some autism news. We have guests that are here. We've got a wonderful expert that's going to be with us today answering your questions. So I hope that you'll participate with us, and that's really the point of this whole show. It's all meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want you to be writing in, calling in, participating with us, text in, Facebook in, you can even Instagram in now if you want to. We want for you to be a part of the conversation. So how do you do that? Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us here on the show. I will remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go, there's so much to do, including check out our blog. You can sign up for our free newsletter, be on our email list. It's on that homepage there. You can also, if you look at the computer screen on the homepage, click on the triangle that's on that page and you can be watching the live show there, or you can watch the most recently recorded live show, or you can click on the playlist and go back through all the shows that we've done over the last couple of years. Now, to the side of all that, there's a series of white boxes, and that we call that the live feature. Put your cursor in the box, the long box that says your question or comment, and start typing and hit enter. It will show up here on my screen, and in that way you and I can have a conversation, but even more important than that, you can be having a conversation with the experts that we have here on the show. We do like to remind you that no one can give individual specific advice on the show, but having said that, you know, sometimes you have questions that are a little bit more open-ended and you want an answer to them before you go to the expert that's going to see you or see your child, right? So this is a great opportunity to get all that information, and it's free. What's wonderful about when you write in a question, we have no idea who you are. It's totally free. It's totally anonymous, unless you decide to put some information in the email to let us know how we can get back to you, which you can always do. But there is no obligation to do that. I do encourage you when you write in to let us know where in the world you are. And I don't mean a street address, but give us, you know, what's the closest mid-sized to big city so that we get an idea. I failed geography. I didn't even take a class in geography because I'm not that good at it, right? So let us know where you are so we get a feel. Unfortunately, autism services are not the same around the world. But if we have an idea where you are, then we can kind of tailor what the resources are that we can refer you to if we know. I hope that you get what you need here, and if you're not, let us know. Speak loudly. I am going to talk a little bit later specifically about It's always amazing when I get to go to an event, and I went to a great event over the weekend and met some great, great people. And what I come back with is a rejuvenation from you guys. You let me know what's missing in your lives. And, I had a lot of time I shed a few tears over the weekend thinking about some of the folks that I met and some of the things that they're not getting. But that rant will come later. Stay tuned for it because the top of my head might fly off and fly around the room. But some really good things to share too. Some amazing people and an amazing event. Now, I do like to remind you at the start of the show before we do anything, I said that we have a bunch of experts and a brilliant expert who is going to be on a little bit later on in the show. But please remember that I am not one of the experts that appears on the show. I am not an expert in autism. Au contraire, my friends. I am an autism mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and you see that I grin about that. I didn't on the first day. I don't think I grinned about that the first year, but he's 11.5 now, and I have been able to see a little bit more. We were so lucky because we got access to the best services that there are. We got, and one of the reasons why we film here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters is because my son was able to become a CARD client. I want you to know, we talk about ABA a lot on this show because it is the gold standard of treatment for autism. And I talk about CARD on this show because I have such a debt of gratitude to pay them because they gave me my child back. But I always like to remind you that what we're talking about here is quality ABA. And I want you to know that while CARD is probably the largest provider of quality ABA service in the world, and they do services around the world, they know, and I know that they're not the only one. And I want you to know that we all know that there are other places where you can get quality ABA, and it's really important that you get quality ABA. But I will unashamedly tell you that if you're close to a CARD office, I personally highly recommend them because, as I said, and don't get me crying first 5 minutes of the show, but I have my child back. I have my life back because of the work that they did with my child. That, my friends, is something, I'm going to be talking about as they close the casket on me. I'll be going, excuse me, one more second. So in any case, but remember that I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who feels very passionately. I am a former teacher. I know the power of teaching someone how to do something, and I hope that I can be here to help you get hooked up to the resources that you need, because I know that when they taught me the things that we did in our house, it changed everything. I want you to be that lucky. I want to help you to connect you to the resources that are there for you. That's why I'm here, but I'm not one of the experts. I'm just a very passionate person in the thick of it with you. How's that? All right. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. Yes, the jargon du jour. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to make sense of it in our lives. We give you an actual definition, which I love to make fun of. I'm just being honest. And then we give you a working definition. So hopefully you can figure out what this means to you today. What does this have to do with anything? Jargon is there for a reason. It's very specific, and hopefully our working definition tells you, oh, that's how I can use this thing. So our jargon term for today is imaginative play. All right, this is something that's really super important, and I know a lot of you see this and go, oh, well, that's what I don't have, Shannon. But, there are lessons that we can do to build imaginative play, but let's figure out what it is first and why it's important. Some of you may not even have noticed that you're missing this from your life or from your child's life. So let's take a look. Our actual definition, I passed it. Our actual definition, it's not in order on my thing. Using imagination to create objects, locations, scenarios, and situations where they do not already exist for the purpose of play. And then if we move on to that's not a bad definition, right? We can sort of figure that out. But if we move on to our working definition, it's making it up. There's that old thing about, if you don't know what you're doing, make it up as you go. But there are individuals that this is not their strong suit, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're, on the autism spectrum, but it is an area where we see that our individuals who are on the autism spectrum, sometimes this is really difficult, if not impossible. And sometimes, while it might be a little bit possible, it's anxiety ridden. Right? I take the example of, let's just talk about personal preferences for a second. My husband and I are, alike in a lot of ways and totally opposite in a lot of other ways. And I'm somebody who, back in the day when I did stand-up and I was an actress, I loved to do improv. I thought that improv I loved to be in a play that had a script as well, but I thought improv was great, and I took a lot of improvisation classes, taught a lot of improvisation classes, loved that. I thought that was great fun. You don't know what's going to happen, and you go with it, right? For my husband, this is not fun. This is nothing exciting about, he's taken some improv classes, but it's not necessarily the thing that makes him go, woohoo, right? Not how he wants to spend a Saturday afternoon. So just know that, different people, different things, right? But we do want to build the idea in our kids that using your imagination and letting it be something different and making it up is fun. So how do you do that in somebody who doesn't know how to do that and doesn't find it fun? Well, if you watch the show, you know that some of the things, and we went back to basics last week, right? And said that we have to start small, but we have to build something into it. And sometimes we have to contrive something. That means you got something that isn't fun. Let's say you're doing math homework and you put a big pile of candy on the table during the math homework. That's not usual. That's not normal. That's a contrived reinforcer. So that every time somebody does a math problem and gets it right, maybe they get an M&M, right? That's a contrived reinforcer that eventually we're going to want to take away, right? And have praise there, and then eventually hope that they just find it exciting on their own. And science has shown us that if we continue to put something that's pleasant with it over and over and over again, suddenly it becomes pleasant. I have shared before on the show that I have a dog that doesn't like the vacuum cleaner. And I have been experimenting with this with my dog, who every time the vacuum cleaner runs, it gets hysterical and barks and tries to fight with it, and it's been miserable. And so I started having my husband vacuum, and I would feed her cashews, which she loves, and praise her and pet her while the vacuum cleaner is running. And on yesterday, I was vacuuming, and here comes my dog, and with the tail wagging as I'm running the vacuum cleaner, and sits down next to me. And I said, good doggy. There's no more hysteria. She thinks now the vacuum cleaner goes on and she gets a treat. I did go get her a treat. Eventually, we're weaning that off, thinning that reinforcement, as we've heard last week from Dr. Nadowski. But my point is that, this was something that was hysteria-making and anxiety-ridden, and we've been working on this a really long time. And now my dog, when the vacuum cleaner goes off, she thinks this is, good stuff happens to her time. This is not a bad thing. It makes my life much better. We can do that if we find it important enough with something like imaginative play. We're going to start really small. We're going to pair it with other things. And when the child goes through that moment of, I don't know what's happening, and something just gets made up, we make sure that we praise and that we pack on the reinforcement. And we see that over time, the child then will want to spend more time doing that. Now, why? Why would we prioritize that? Why would we make that something that we would spend the time to work on? If you stop and think about it, play, and we're going to talk a lot about play this week and today, play is a safe place for our kids to try new things out. And if you got a child to enjoy imaginative play and making it up and going through that moment of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to go with it kind of thing, that helps with flexibility. It helps with critical thinking. It helps for anxiety, right? All of these different things that we want for our children when they get older. Play is important, and imaginative play, super duper important. I remember the first time that we ever saw Jem engage in imaginative play. It was great, exciting, moments. And we're going to talk some more today about other kinds of play like sociodramatic play and symbolic play. We've talked before about functional pretend play. We'll talk about all of that in a little while. But play and imaginative play, a really great thing to make reinforcing for our kids. Okay, we always have a question of the day for you, and our question today is, what is your favorite way to decompress after a hard day? What is it that you do to de-stress? And, it may be some form of play. Some people now are all about their phones, the magic, I'm falling into my phone. We've all seen that happen. It's happened to me before. But what is your thing that you like to do? For me, it changes. I certainly love television. I really do. And I'm not even embarrassed to say that. I was raised around a television because my father was a technical director. And I think it's a great medium, and I love to watch television. I love to watch it with other people. I love to watch it with my son. I love to watch it with my husband, and I think it's used properly. It's a great, great tool. So that's a big way that I like to decompress. I love to play certain kinds of games, but as I've said, not Angry Birds. I love to spend time with my family, and I love to garden. Those are some of the things that I like to do to decompress after a really hard day. But what do you like to do? We want to hear what you like to do. And why am I asking this in conjunction with imaginative play? Because we want to be thinking, anxiety is such a big part of our community. For the parents and for the kids, we need to build in time to decompress for ourselves and for our kids as well. If they don't have a way, as we help them to come more into the world and notice what's going on and to follow social rules, we will find that their anxiety will ratchet up, right? We need to make sure that we have done our due diligence and taught them how to decompress and how to play and take time off. And how to do that productively in a way that isn't harmful to them. Because if we don't put something positive in, there's the potential for something negative to crop up, right? So if you don't have a way to decompress, we have to solve that for you because you're going to model that for your kids, right? So write in and tell us. Maybe you'll give us some ideas of things that we can do to decompress. I love Pinterest too, can I just say? That's a great way for me to have a small decompress. If I don't have very much time. All right, that's our question for today. We always have a topic for the week. And our topic this week, if you haven't guessed already, it is the power of play. I think too often we, especially for those of us who have kids on the autism spectrum, we start to think about all the things that our kids are missing. And because they get behind. There's no way of denying that. That's part of what happens. That whatever happens neurologically, our kids stop picking up cues, and so they get further and further behind. And then once we realize it, we're all about getting them caught up. And it's, I want my child to speak. I want my child to be able to understand this concept. I want my child to be able to socialize. We have this list, this laundry list of things. And sometimes play isn't on the list, and other times it's at the very bottom of the list. And I just want to make the case today for this week, actually, the power of play. When we teach our kids how to play, we actually sometimes are solving all of those other things that are on the laundry list. Think about how much communication is involved in play, how much socialization, how much being able to comprehend what's happening around you and put it in a context. My friends, it's the power of play, and we're talking about that this week. So some of the different things that we have going on here this morning. Today we're going to do a President's Day weekend recap. I'm going to spend a little bit of time after the break talking with you about an amazing event, the Mardi Gras for Autism, which I've waxed poetic about it before, and this weekend it did not disappoint. I want to tell you about what a wonderful event it was, and then I have a little bit of a rant about some of the things that I found out that people are missing from their programs. So we're going to talk about that, hopefully see if we can't do something about it. We have some autism news for you. I always try to balance it, and I'm hoping that this isn't all bad news. And then in the next hour, we have Dr. Linda Copeland is going to be with us, and she is a Board Certified Behavior Analyst and a Developmental Pediatrician. Yes, she's both. I know it's shocking, but it's true. I always say she's like a unicorn, and we've been getting questions from you guys. I've sent them off to her very late this morning, for which I will be apologizing throughout the whole show to her. But she's gotten some questions from you guys, and we're going to get to as many of them as we can in the second hour. She comes on at 11:15 Pacific time. So all of that and a lot more coming up after these messages.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Lisa Ackerman with TACA. We're here with the TACA Facts, the most common questions in the autism journey, real life questions and answers for your family. Oh boy, this one gets me in trouble. I get this question probably at least a dozen times a week, but how do I get my significant other on board? Whether it's having ABA done in your home, 5 days a week, speech therapy, or even biomedical intervention. I'm talking to you as a parent. It happened to me in the autism journey 3 years after diagnosis. I felt like I'd been through a war zone. I don't have pictures. I don't remember those 3 years. It was awful, and I'm surprised my husband and I made it out of that war zone. So here's some of the tips that helped me get through those 3 years and made it a better marriage, because he's the one I want to be with. First thing you need to do, and this goes for dudes and chicks, replace all the bathroom reading material. Now, whether you just had an independent evaluation with a neuropsychologist, or you just went to your doctor, your MAPS doctor, to help your child get through some serious medical issues, replace the labs, replace the neuropsych eval, and put that all in the bathroom. That's where we do our best reading and thinking, after all. It's one of the most simplistic things that you can do, but literally replace all the bathroom reading material. 2, very important that twice a year you have a meeting and you schedule it with your spouse to say, we're going to do the next 6 months of planning, whether it's just create a quick list, identify the issues or the self-stimulatory behavior or the things that you need to do to help your child with autism make the project. Let me give you an example. We created the Man Project. My son was becoming a teenager, and we found ourselves living a little bit in a rut, babying him a little too much. So what we did was we created a Man Project, and we identified a list of the skills and the things that we wanted my son or our son to learn. We agreed to it, and then we came up with a plan that we could activate over the next 6 months. And my next favorite. Don't forget to have sex with your spouse. Often you will feel disconnected with the person that you love. And if you're not connected with them, you're not connected with them in that way. You're not connecting with them in your autism journey. So my husband laughs, he calls me Dr. Ruth, so I'm giving you a coupon to please just go have sex with your spouse. That will help move things along, but also make it a little more cohesive in a house of chaos, living with autism. So hi, this is Lisa signing out as Dr. Ruth. No, I'm just kidding. Lisa Ackerman with TACA, and we'll talk to you at the next TACA Facts.
Welcome back, and thanks to Lisa Ackerman for her wonderful TACA Facts. We love those, and then we're going to be continuing those very soon. In fact, TACA is going to be doing a monthly show with us, which is going to be really wonderful. We have some more exciting news about things like that, but we thoroughly love Lisa Ackerman, and we're excited that they're going to become a bigger part of the show. So I mentioned before the break that I wanted to do a recap of the President's Day weekend, and it was kind of a crazy weekend for us because we had a wonderful event to go to on Saturday. And for those of you that we met at the Mardi Gras for Autism done by Fullerton Cares, it was such, I gotta say, this event has a heart like no other. This year, it was beautiful, sunny. In fact, it was downright hot. It was a little on the beastly side, but it was huge event, so many people, so many things to do. My only regret is that I was in the booth the whole time, and so I didn't get to go out and chat with some of the other people from the community that had their booths, but to be honest, they were pretty busy manning their booths as well. A couple of them did come to our booth, and we love that, but more importantly, the families that we got to meet just was so amazing. And there was one point when sometimes I get overwhelmed. I think we all do too. But we were having an opportunity to meet with families, and their kids came and played a game, and we had a little prize for all the kids, and we had a raffle. We had a lot of stuff that we gave away, and very excited about that. But as we were talking to families and saying, a lot of them didn't know who we were, because people are still finding out about Autism-live. We were saying, we're just here to hook you up with resources. And they were saying, well, how much does it cost? No, we're free. And that was very exciting to people. It was really lovely to connect with them. And I always say to people, what is it that you need? Where are you at in this journey? How long ago did you get the diagnosis? And one of the things that we were hearing overwhelmingly from people, I would put people into three different categories. We had the people who had the very young kids, a lot of people who had just barely been diagnosed or even been diagnosed for a year but got an early diagnosis, so their kids were just turning 3. And then we had the kids who were a little bit older. I would say that, 5 to 13 age range, which my son is in. And what I was thrilled was that range of parents and caregivers were kind of in the groove. They had their therapy together. Their kids were making progress. They were enjoying the day, participating. I was having, conversations, a lot of them verbal with those kids. Very, very exciting. Then we moved to the next range of people who were 13 up to 27. And that was probably the oldest adult on the spectrum that I met at the event. Not to say that there weren't others that were older, but that I met. And a lot of people asking for camps and asking for more services, wanting to know what there was available for kids who were older. And so it's just sort of interesting to me that over the years, as autism and autism awareness has grown, it's not uncommon to go to an event like that and see the kids who are older and see that they have not gotten the services that they so richly deserve. That's the part of our population that blazed trails and kind of have been left behind. I'm excited that there's more things to talk about for that group of people. And those parents were really excited to know that there were more things. There's not enough yet, right? But they were excited. I thought it was really uplifting to see those families that were in that age range that they had already figured out how they were going to really take this journey through autism and get the services that they needed. But it's always my expectation that as we get better, we do better. And so those newly diagnosed families, that we will get better at welcoming them to the community and helping them to get set up with services, especially now that here in California, we have autism insurance reform. So one way or another, there should not be a kid in the state of California who is left with nothing. That just shouldn't be at this point. Because if the insurance isn't covering it because it's self-funded, then the regional center should be picking up a lot of the slack. And there are organizations that help to fill in the gap as well. Great organizations like Fullerton Cares, which was having this event. And I have to stop for a second and say, we have a picture, I think Kelby's got a picture of me with Larry. That's us at the Autism-live booth. And what an incredible man, because without him, Fullerton Cares would not be what it is today. And that's Larry Hauser. He was with us 2 weeks ago to talk about this event. And families get information that they need because of this. So I want to go back to these early families. What I was hearing from so many of them is that their child got a diagnosis between the ages of 1 and 2, and that now their child was turning 3, and they were saying to me, so now I'm without services. And I was going, what? What are you talking about? No. 3 is not when we stop. 3 is when we double down. And there was a lot of misconception for this population. So grateful to Larry Hauser, so grateful to Fullerton Cares, because that day was all about those families finding out that there is a lot to be done at 3, not game over. I don't know where all the misconceptions are coming from that these families were told that they no longer qualified for services. I have to say right now that here in the state of California, we have something called the regional centers that were formed by the Lanternman Act. And each regional center is different, but they all work together. So they shouldn't be that different. You know what I'm saying? And I have nothing but gratitude to the regional center. We've had individuals like Dr. Youngbauer on the show who was instrumental in making sure that families that were in the regional center system got access to ABA. The regional center is the organization that paid for my son's ABA overwhelmingly. And I don't know where we would have been without them. So I have such gratitude to the regional center. But you know, sometimes something can get disconnected, and sometimes it's just one person, and I don't know what the case is, but I was hearing overwhelmingly from families that they were being told that they weren't eligible for regional center services after their child reached the age of 3. And like I said, I have no idea who has started that rumor. It is just not true. And if you call the regional center and point blank ask them, they will be very clear with you and let you know that an individual who has an autism diagnosis is an active person for the regional center for life. For life. Things don't stop at 3. So sometimes you got to talk to somebody else. If I go up to a hot dog stand and I ask the person, do you have mustard? The person who's standing there, maybe a week ago there was no mustard, and they say, no, there's no mustard. But in fact, there's mustard, right? You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you got to ask more than just the first person that you talk to. I was so glad to be able to share that information, as was everybody who was at this event, telling people, no, regional center, you're a client of the regional center for life. So I want to make sure that I drill that home, because it just was making me sad. I did shed some tears over it over the weekend, thinking, what would have happened if these people didn't have something like the Mardi Gras for Autism to come to get that message? Would we 5 years from now, are we still, because I imagine that there are some people who didn't make it to the event for whatever reason, because you should have, it was great. Are there going to be people who 5 years from now say, oh, I didn't know that my child was eligible for that, I could have gotten help with that I could have done X, Y, and Z. It's on all of us to spread the word. And if you're in Southern California and you know somebody who has recently been diagnosed, make sure that you reach out. Make sure that you let them know you have recourse here in Southern California. And we're not the only ones. I don't mean to make it sound like Southern California is the only place that you can get autism resources. Most states now have insurance reform so that insurance companies are picking up the tab, which is what it should be. It should not be incumbent upon the states to take care of everything. And the states who don't yet have insurance reform have other things in place. It needs to be expanded, but I'm not aware of a single state that has absolutely nothing going on and no resources. And for many of you that are watching us around the world, I know that is the case for some of you, and it's one of the reasons why there are things like Skills, an online program that has the curriculum with all the things that you would need to teach an individual, an IBT to train you to know how to do that therapy, so that no one in the world is without hope and without some sort of resource. No one. Now, one of the other things that was overwhelmingly clear yesterday were there were people that I spoke to who had gotten ABA and their children were making progress, and then they stopped their ABA because they could not afford their copays. And to me, this is one of the hardest things in life. For all of us, but especially for those families that are making those hard decisions and saying, we know this is helping this child, but we're going to stop because we can't afford to make the copay. I know the realities of it because I've had to talk to so many families, and I cannot imagine, and I tell you that we were never in that position. We were in other positions that had some similarities, that we had a portion of our ABA that was paid for by another funding source, but we had to pay for it first, submit the bill to them, get reimbursed, and then turn around and take that money. And it was a large sum every month. And it was really, really hard. To have that much money on hand to just keep turning over into this, it was $6,000 some months. So I get it. For a lot of you, your copay for the year is $6,000, and that number sticks in my head because it's an overwhelming amount of money. But that $6,000 that you need to pay for a year entitles you, in some cases, upwards of $100,000 worth of therapy that has the ability to change your life and to change your kids' lives. So we need to help you to figure out how to get that $6,000. And we are going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But I was saying to people, please, please don't be stopped by that $6,000. I know it seems like it's overwhelming, and it might as well be $1 million in some cases, and to have to come up with it every year, right? It just is overwhelming. I can't find other words for it. It's overwhelming, and it feels cruel, because if you had the $6,000, then you could have all this other stuff, right? So let's focus on how do we make the $6,000 happen. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk to you about 3 particular funding sources that you can seek out to get that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 that you need to be able to make those copays. If you're one of the people that's in this category, don't go away. This is stuff that can help. Stick with us.
Looking for some cheap festive napkins for your next party with your kids? Look no further. We're going to be making some hand-dyed paper napkins. While we make this fun activity, you'll notice that these icons will pop up. These icons lay important information about the skill and where to find it on the Skills program. Skills is an ABA-based online tool that helps parents create curriculum to help teach their children on the autism spectrum. And if you're already a Skills user, this will ensure that you get the most out of this fun activity with your child. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are paper towels, food coloring, water, a bowl, and rubber bands. Step 1, you're going to take your paper towel and you're going to fold it symmetrically into a shape. This is a chance to be creative to see how repeating patterns are going to be made. Once your paper towels have been folded into different types of shapes and patterns, you're going to take your rubber band and you're going to use that to secure it in place. These are my folded up napkins. Now that they're ready, I'm going to take my water and mix it up with the food coloring and submerge the napkins in it. Once they've been submerged with the food coloring, I'm going to take it out and lay it flat to dry. If you leave it in the water too long, they're going to completely disintegrate, so just leave them in for just a moment. I've been very patient, and here is my finished pattern napkin. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with me today. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye!
To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parent icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So I had said before the break that I wanted to come back and talk specifically about copays and what to do about copays if you're overwhelmed, and please don't decide, if you've already decided to stop therapy because of your copay, I want you to rethink that, because it's too important. It's too important to let go. And I know that some of you your copays are all different amounts. Sometimes you have to make a $20 copay every time a therapist comes to your house, up to a certain amount of money. And usually you get to, it could be $2,000, it could be $4,000, it could be $5,000. I think it can be as high as $6,350, somewhere around there. And I think that after that, they're not, I think that our new rules with Obamacare doesn't allow it to go higher than that or much higher than that. Please check that for your personal insurance. But I know that sometimes getting to that number can seem very overwhelming. I want you to look at this in a different way. That if you could get the funding to make all that copay happen until you can get to your deductible, think about how amazing the rest of the year would be. Then you wouldn't have to make any more of those copays, and you could get access to all the health care that you needed, right? And it would be covered by your insurance. I think that perhaps that's probably information that insurance companies don't want you to focus on, because it makes more sense for them if you're not getting to that point. But if you know, in the first 2 years that my son had therapy, I think the first year it was $120,000 worth of therapy. And I think in the second year it was still over $100,000 worth of therapy. And that's overwhelming to me. Like, I can't even talk about how grateful I am that we had access to funding for that, so that we were able to do that. It was so life-changing. The rest of our lives will be different forever because we had that. And I didn't have the money to do that, right? And I really didn't have $6,000 laying around to be able to do that either. So I can relate if you don't. But I want you to know some of the things that I found out and some of the things that I continue to find out, to motivate you to go to the places to get that funding, because once you get to that magical number, whatever it is for you, things will be infinitely easier. So why not just solve that $6,000 problem? You think, but I can't do any more and I've got other things going on. Yes, so let's make it as easy as possible. Thing number one to go for copays, Autism Care and Treatment Today, which is a wonderful charity, gives money to families for the things that they need. Now, you can get a grant. You can request a grant for up to $5,000 from them. That is money that you do not have to pay back. It is a lengthy process. You have to fill out a lot of information. They need to know your tax information, and you have to write something about why you need the money and what you need the money specifically for. But they love to fund copays and deductibles. Why? Because they can't write you a check for the whole amount for ABA, but they know that if they give you $5,000 towards your copay or your deductible, that goes a long way towards you getting so much more therapy beyond that. It's money well spent. It gives you access. So it's one of the things that they absolutely love to give grants for. There are 4 different times a year that they give grants, and if the first time you apply for a grant you don't get it, your grant application makes you eligible for the next grant phase, and then you can reapply after that. There isn't enough money to go around for everyone to get grants, so they really go by your application and who has need. It doesn't mean that if you, say for instance, if you're a family that your income is high, but you have other bills, don't be put off by that. Just make sure that you include that in your grant application about why you need the money. So don't think, oh, well, we make a certain amount of money, so we aren't going to be eligible. There is no cutoff, but they will give to the families that they see the greatest need in. So apply. You can go to ACT, so www.act-today.org, and apply for a grant. Go to their website, see when the next grant phase is. I believe that it's coming. There's one coming up. But they do it 4 times a year, so if it's not coming up in this next month, it will be the month after that. All right, so that's one great resource for copay. Now, another place that I don't have actual confirmation that they fund money for copays, but through the rumor mill, I have heard that they have, and I know that they fund other things. I can't see why they wouldn't fund a copay, and that is the United Healthcare Children's Fund. You do not have to be a person with United Healthcare, by the way, to be able to be eligible for this grant. And again, it is a grant. It is money that you do not have to pay back. It is a one-time $5,000 grant. They will only give money to treatments that have been found to be effective and that are FDA approved. So you know, ABA should qualify for that, and your copay should qualify for that. So Google United Healthcare Children's Fund to be able to find out about a grant for that. Another place that you can consider that I personally have used, and I can tell you that they are amazing, but it is a loan, not a grant. And there's a vast difference. So I would tell you, apply for grants first, but if you need to, there are the possibilities of loans. The place where I got my loan was from the Jewish Free Loan Association. And I tell you with all honesty and openness, you do not have to be Jewish. I am not Jewish. And they gave me a loan so that I had that $5,000. It was actually I think it was just over $6,000 or just under $6,000 to be able to have that money revolve. That we would pay our ABA provider, and we would get the receipt for that, and then we would go to the funding source and wait for them for 60 days to give us the money back, which then we would pay to the provider again and have the revolving door. We were able to make payments. They are interest-free loans. You do have a huge responsibility if you're taking a loan from the Jewish Free Loan Association that you must pay the money back. You cannot be late on your payments. They make very reasonable payments, which is so much easier over a period of time. And if you're thinking to yourself, yes, but then I'm going to have more co-pays later on, by then you might have a grant. Keep that in mind. And plus which the amount of therapy that your child needs over the years greatly, greatly diminishes. So you could get to the point where you no longer, needed the money. Jewish Free Loan Association. You can Google that as well, but I believe that it's JFLA, Jewish Free Loan Association.org, to find out more information from them. Again, it's a lengthy application that you have to fill out, and you do have to have co-signers because it is important that they get the money back that they lend to people. But I personally use them and speak very highly. They were absolutely amazing. They saved our keisters. And then there is another organization that also lends money that is Lend for Health. Lend, the number 4 health.org. You can go to their site, and they lend for all kinds of money. If you find yourself in a bind and you need money for a copay or a deductible or a treatment, they are a wonderful organization. They will even lend money for you to be able to attend a conference, which is truly, truly amazing. So there are, I promised you 3, and I gave you 4 resources to be able to find money. And by the way, find it relatively quickly for all 4 of those things. And then of course the 5th thing that I always mention to people is don't be afraid to have a fundraiser. Don't be afraid to do that, to raise money for your ability to make your copay and deductible. There are a lot of people who, whether it's that you have a bake sale and you sell your cookies for $5 a piece and say, this is what's going to make it possible for us to make our deductible, you'd be amazed at who would be willing to help you. Total strangers. Who will step up and feel good about the fact that they're helping you to help your child get that treatment. Just don't say, I can't do it. Failure is not an option, my friends. We are closer to being able to help more people than we ever have before. Don't opt out of it because of the copay. Please don't. And if you need help figuring out how to do any of those things that we talked about, please email me s.penrod@autism-live.com. I'll get you revved up. We'll find that money. It's there. And your child needs and deserves that support, and your family needs and deserves that support. So let's do it together. All right? We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back to talk about play and the power of play. Stick with us.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for Military Families 10K and 5K Run, Walk, and Family Fun Festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder, so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma. I work with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to ACT Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here, of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being ACT Today that does a fantastic job.
ACT Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does ACT Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight two battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff sergeant email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you're gonna have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are talking all this week about the power of play. That when we give our kids really good play skills, we're teaching them so much more than how to waste time and how to fritter away time, right? I love when Dr. Phil says everybody needs to have a safe place to fall, that a home environment should be a place where everybody's comfortable and feels relaxed. And I always think about the fact that it isn't just a place, right? It's being able to do certain things. And sometimes it's not other people. Sometimes you need to be able to entertain yourself. Right? And if we do have the ability to entertain ourselves, then we're going to be happier people with less anxiety. And not only are we going to lessen anxiety through play, but we're going to feel more fulfilled personally. Play is an opportunity to work on things that are interesting to us before they become something that we want to decide to be our job, right? When we think of some of the things that our kids on the autism spectrum are fascinated with when they're kids, if that fascination persists, then often that leads to something that is their passion and their career, right? A kid who likes to paint when he is little can grow up to be an artist. So we're working on a lot of different things. And when kids are playing next to each other, we're working on socialization. So I think that having play be a really important part of our kids' development and paying attention to it and helping them and teaching them how to play is something that we should all highly consider. So I like to look at the model and this is not the best visual representation. I can't find the one that we have that's better. But these are different domains in skills, in the skills program, that have to do with play. It's not the most legible because you can see that we have it's part of a PowerPoint presentation. So we have the 5 different categories that you can see sort of overlaid. That the top one is independent play. Then we have interactive games. Then we have pretend play, we have electronic play, which you can't see that it says that at all, and then we have constructive play. I think anytime you can break things down into different categories, then it makes it a little bit easier to know what you're talking about. And all of these different areas of play are really, really important that we help our kids be able to at least know what they are and at least know how to do them. And I want to go through some of the different things that go into these different categories. So if we start with independent play, and you know, it's at the top of our list here because it's where we want to get to. But you're never going to get there unless you start introducing it really, really young. So and all of these categories are going to cover a vast range of skills and different ages, right? So if you think about independent play, I want my 11-year-old to get to the point where he does, can play by himself and entertain himself without somebody having to be there and reward him to be able to do it. We want to get to that point. But it starts with very young babies. You know those play gyms that they have? They didn't have them many years ago, but now it's on everybody's list when they're about to have a baby. And basically what it is a blanket that you lay down on the floor for the child, but it has things for the child to interact with because we know that that helps to develop that brain that is starting to make connections. So sometimes it has a little hoop that goes over the blanket, so you lay the child on the back and there's things for them to kick, right? Or things to them to bat with their hands. Other times it has things so that they roll over, they touch a certain spot and it crinkles and it makes a little noise or it makes a little squeaky thing, right? So that's the beginning of all that kind of stuff. And you put the child in sometimes it's in a chair where Jem had a thing that went over the chair that had little animals like a mobile that he could play with, right? We want to make our environments interactive for our kids at all ages. We don't ever want them to just be someplace and be fuzzing out and not doing anything. That is not helpful, especially if we have a concern for autism or if the child already has a diagnosis of autism. We want to get them interacting, get their minds engaged, get their bodies engaged doing things. So as they grow older, sensory, motor, and manipulative play gets more involved. But, you know, it's all along those same lines, all that interactive stuff. Task completion play. I used to love those preschool toys are really incredible with this. They're very obvious, right? If you go down the Fisher-Price aisle, they have all those little things that you push a little button, you turn it, and something pops up, right? And it makes a little noise, and then the child pops it back down, and if you turn it again, it comes up again, right? So there's a task that has to be completed in order for something to happen. It's like a cause and effect kind of a thing. Really, if you think about it, we're working on understanding cause and effect. I do this, this happens, right? And there's a reward. Sometimes whatever it is something that the child really loves. I remember Jem had one that was Sesame Street. So the Grouch would pop up and say something, and you slid something else, and Big Bird would pop up and say something, and he just absolutely loved that. But task completion toys can run the full gamut. I love when the marble run is a really good one for our kids because they get the marble and they put together the whole thing and they put the marble at the top and it goes down and it completes a task and it's done, right? So these are really good toys, but then we're eventually working up towards having playstations, so that maybe our child is somebody who it's a girl and she only likes to play with a tea set, and that's all she ever wants to do, right? So eventually we want to make playstations for her so that she goes and we have a timer and she gets 10 minutes to play with the tea set, and then the timer goes off and we have a visual schedule that says, move on to the next thing. So she goes and plays with the Barbies for 10 minutes. The timer goes off. Now she goes and does the easy bake oven for 10 minutes. The timer dings, and then she gets to go play, pretend that she's a teacher and play on the board, whatever, but that we're teaching the child to go and transition from each thing. Why? Why would we take the time out of a busy schedule when trying to teach a child to speak and to be social and, read and write and all these things? Why would we take the time to do this? We'll stop and think about it. If we teach the child to be able to do that, we're going to get her ready for kindergarten, which is, now we're sitting at a center and we're doing our art project, and ding, the timer goes off and we move our centers and we go to reading, and then ding, and we go to math, right? We're teaching the child how to transition, which, by the way, is going to help throughout their entire life. Eventually, I'm looking at junior high now, where the bell goes off, ding, and they change classes, right? Our kids have to be able to move from one thing to another their whole lives. And if we do this with play in a really fun environment, then we teach them that transitioning is not this big, scary thing. We will see that as we're starting to do this, that sometimes they will tantrum because they're having to leave something that they want to do to go something else. Don't be afraid of that. Don't say, I'm just not going to do PlayStations because of that, because that's what's going to happen as they go to school. And what happens when a friend says, I have to leave the park? All helps with transitions. Plus which, it helps a child to not be fixated on one thing. We're working on that flexibility. How many of you, show of hands, have a teenager who only wants to do one thing, right? I've got the preteen, all he wants to do is be on the computer, and we worry about their focus getting too narrow. So this helps to get them into transitioning and doing other things. All right, we're really not going to get through all of this, but I want to just briefly go through. So interactive games, look at the things that are included here. Early social games, read to me books and nursery rhymes, music and movement, treasure hunt, which is a whole set of lessons and skills that utilizes treasure hunt as something to teach a whole bunch of other skills like perspective taking. Card and board games, locomotor play, things like riding on your tricycle, being on a trampoline, peer play. How important is that? Because we want all of our kids to have fun, but if they can't play with their peers, they're not going to keep friends, right? Then we get into pretend play, all that functional pretend play, playing in the kitchenette, symbolic play, which we're going to be talking about later on this week, imaginary play, which we talked about today, and sociodramatic play, where they dress up in costumes and, they say, all right, I'm going to be the dad, you be the mom, and you're the dog, and now you're the baby, and then they change the rules. This helps our kids to be able to do perspective taking, because they have to think, okay, if I'm the dad, what does a dad do? Right? And they put themselves in somebody else's shoes for a minute. Or I'm going to be the fireman. I put on the fireman's thing. What does a fireman do? Now they're thinking like a fireman. It's the beginning of perspective taking. Then electronic play, which a lot of times we get our kids involved in, and boy, they want to spend all their time there. That's audio and video play. It's being able to do video games and working on the computer. And constructive play, which is a great place to focus for our kids when we're wanting to get them into other things, because they tend to be drawn to the constructive play. That's things like Legos for block construction, building structures from it, sand and water, which is great for our kids with flexibility and sensory issues, to put their hands in water, put it in sand, put them together, making mud pies. Good stuff. Clay construction stuff, things like Play-Doh. It's all very tactile. Sometimes our kids won't love it to begin with. That's okay. But then things like arts and crafts. We have our Smarty here that we feature on the show because it's so important to give our kids that outlet. That builds imagination. All of these things help our kids in so many different ways. All of these different areas have specific lessons in skills. I encourage you to check it out and see what's there. We got to take a break and go to the A word because we're way past our time, and then it's going to be time for Dr. Linda Copeland to be with us. So let's tune in to see the A word. This is the ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. We get to see how play is included in his program. Let's take a look. This is the A word.
Wow. Sand. Does that feel funny in your hands? Do you want to go swing? Jack Riley. Jack. Good looking. Thank you.
I accept that he has sensory issues. I completely accept that he has speech delays. All of the symptoms and the things that lead up to the word autism, I have no problem accepting that. I have no problem addressing that and being aggressive about it and making those things happen. It's the word itself that I have a hard time with, mostly because of my perception, and I imagine the perception of a lot of people that autism is Rain Man.
I don't have my maple syrup either. I'm gonna be without my maple syrup and my toothpicks.
It's all these images that you see, you know, even when they put a child on TV, it's a child who's so severe and doesn't hug his parents, and because our son does that, it's just hard for me to make that leap. And then logically, I get it. It's a big spectrum, and it's just a personal thing. But it's hard for me to say the word because you don't want to admit anything.
It makes it real to say the word.
We knew it even before to a certain extent. You know, he would line up cars and
I'd walk on the knuckles of his toes a lot.
I mean, I remember even having conversations saying like, I'm sure he walks on the knuckles of his toes. I'm sure he lines up his toys.
Yeah, the more times you say, oh sure, then you find eventually you've got to
He spins.
draw a circle around those and say, okay, what does that add up to?
So we always noticed that.
He didn't point.
He never pointed, although we didn't realize that until we went through this process. If our pediatrician had asked us, you know, 8-9 months ago, does your son point? We would have known a lot right then. We decided last fall to get Jack Riley tested for speech delay. We noticed that he wasn't saying a lot. He didn't say mommy, he didn't say daddy. He was a little different when we would take him out in public. So we contacted the regional center to get him evaluated for speech delay, in my mind. And that was the worst I thought it would be. So when they told us autism, I think that word was far worse than we ever expected to hear.
I remember I kicked the garbage can when we were outside. My foot hurt. I remember that. And that wasn't a very good day.
How were they with letting you know that was the diagnosis?
I guess in my recollection, and this is me projecting quite a bit, but they pitied us.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. And they're talking sort of like I was 12 years old or something like that. Who knows how to deal with that kind of stuff? I mean, even if you're a professional and that's what you do all the time, I don't know. You don't know the people you're telling very well.
There was a lot of the head shaking, and you know, he's still the same beautiful child that you came here with, but yet they're sitting there like they've just given us a death sentence.
Yeah, it was almost like they just told us he had cancer or something.
So I don't know if I'm reading that in, or I don't think that I like them that much. I still don't think I do. And we didn't love that process either. They brought him in there and gave him 45 new toys and said he's more interested in the toys than he is in us.
We thought what kid wouldn't be, but.
But then in retrospect, in the hour and a half, 2 hours that he was there, he never once showed us one of the toys. He didn't come to us to engage us in any of it. And actually they did us a favor because we would have fought it. I mean, just in our heads, we would have fought the autism diagnosis. We wouldn't have. Had they told us that he's fine, we would have left and got him speech therapy, and that would have been it.
Probably it, yeah.
We're pretty numb about all of this. I mean, we found out November 2nd. It's 4 months. It's also kind of a mourning period, so I think we went very numb for a while.
Yeah.
But we're coming out of that now too, where we're starting to, you know, click so that there are things that we can do. I mean, I think for the unfortunate part for a while was that we were both thinking, come and help us, everybody, please.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have this thing that we don't know how to deal with it, and you know, time's a ticket, come and help us, tell us, and now we're just kind of do it ourselves, and we're the ones who know him best, and you know, we can take all this information that people tell us, and then we can adapt it to what we know will work for him, and he's already responding. It's slow, but
I personally forgot for a while to enjoy him. I just took care of him all day, and I wasn't having fun. Now I'm back to just how cute he is and how incredible that little thing he just did is, and that smile and the joy he gets out of one simple little thing. And but for a while there, I forgot to do that. I just was getting through the day. Maybe you didn't want to notice. Maybe I didn't want to notice things because a lot of them point to the A word, autism again. There's no one to talk to about it, because even when you bring up the idea that's possible, your family members, no, he's fine. They want to help you say no and deny it. He seems fine. He's just, my son didn't talk till he was 3 and a half.
yeah, a lot of people, that was part of why we didn't even have him evaluated until we did, because a lot of people would tell us that.
And everyone tells me their son didn't speak till he was 3 and a half and wasn't potty trained till he was 4, and so my kid's normal. Well, it's easy to deny it, but we're not denying anymore.
I ordered a pair of earrings, and they were puzzle pieces because my son liked puzzles, and I thought, this is in honor of my son. I'll wear these earrings. They had the right colors, and I thought, this is great. And we were probably two days away from going to this diagnosis, and I'd done enough research to know what they might say. And it occurred to me that puzzle pieces were symbolic of autism. And I was like, I have to send them back. I'll wear them. This is terrible. I can't believe I've ordered autism earrings.
Yeah.
And didn't wear them for months. They sat there, I looked at them every day, and I thought, I'm going to put these earrings in today and accept it and move forward. And couldn't do it. Thought, I can't wear them to OT because they'll think I'm just wearing autism earrings to, make a statement. And I finally started wearing them probably, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So I guess that means I'm getting used to the idea.
I see it in adults now. I'm very conscious of it. Maybe it helps to just think everybody has it a little bit. We were getting Jack a haircut a few weeks ago. We still say the A word instead of autism. I'll say A word, it's your A word. And
That was for real, though.
That was real. This 15-year-old kid walks in, and Toy Story 3 is on, and there's little kids getting their hair cut, sitting on chairs and animals and whatever. And he starts talking out loud to whoever would listen, saying how much money Toy Story 3 had made, and it's the largest grossing in history, and blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, okay, I'll see you guys later. And he walked out, and I go, A word? And she goes, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So at least we got a little sense of humor about it now.
Are you watching Daddy dance?
Welcome back, and that is the A word. That's the first episode in the series that following this little boy, Jack Riley, and following his family as they begin their early intensive behavioral intervention. A really poignant time when you've gotten the diagnosis and haven't yet started on the path towards progress. And we'll have it unfold in the coming weeks that you can see how difficult this really is. I know for those of you who are not yet getting ABA, and we're saying to you, you need to, I never want to paint a picture that it's all easy once it starts, but I do think that this is the hardest part. You've gotten the diagnosis, you know what you need to do, and everybody is saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Now wait. Wait until it's your turn on the waiting list. Wait until your funding kicks in. Wait until, And, my thing that I always say to you is don't wait. Don't wait. There are things that you can start to do in the interim. They weren't available to me at the time, and they weren't available to this family at that time, but they are available to you now. You can be using skills. You can using IBT. Get yourself trained. Get yourself as ready as possible, but don't wait. Do get yourself on a waiting list, though. I know that sounds like it's counterintuitive, but believe me, do both things. Get on the waiting list and then don't wait. Go ahead and start. Okay, in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Dr. Linda Copeland, who's going to be with us. She is a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and she is a Developmental Pediatrician, or as I like to say, she's a unicorn. How can you be both those things? No one else is, but she is, and she's going to be answering your questions. Before that, though, very quickly, we have one news story that we cannot do this show without at least touching on. Our friends at the Autism Daily Newscast over the weekend broke a story. You know that we've talked about Carly Fleischman on the show many times. We've had her father on the show talking about Carly's remarkable journey. She is a young woman who was thought to be completely nonverbal, completely non-communicative until a moment in time when her parents were away and she took the computer of a caregiver who was there taking care of her and wrote on the computer, "Help, my teeth hurt." And really changed everything at that point. Her family hurried back to be with her. Carly has since made appearances on television. She was with Holly Robinson Peete on The View, and not The View, The Talk, excuse me, and has been an avid blogger. Wrote part of the book that she and her husband, or she and her father, excuse me, did called Carly's Voice. An amazing young woman, an inspiration to all of us. And of late, she has not been as present online, and some people were starting to ask some questions about this. And her father broke the silence and spoke exclusively to Autism Daily Newscast. We encourage you to check out the whole article, but we are devastated to hear that Carly has not been doing well. And as I said, you can read all about that, and we want you to read from her because we know that it's important to her that you hear things from her and not be part of a gossip mill. But her dad is saying that last fall, Carly did, by her own choice and after doing the research herself, and her parents did some research as well, decide to participate in some ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, because she was having a great deal of anxiety, and her research had told her that that had the potential to help her. Her family took her to Toronto to be able to participate in that therapy. And then in the period of time after that, Carly has lost some of her ability to communicate that she previously had. Devastating for all of us to hear that. I think that I speak for all of us when we say that we wish nothing but the best for Carly and for her family. We hope that whatever is going on, and her family has been very vocal about saying that we are not sure that having done the electroconvulsive therapy has something to do with this, that there may have been something up before. But really devastating. I know how much it has meant to her family and to Carly to be able to communicate, to be able to understand and be understood, and that at this moment in time, from what we're hearing, appears to be compromised. We hope that they get all the best care and that they get to the answers as soon as possible, because the ability to communicate is something that everyone deserves to have. We wish everyone in the Fleischman household well, and we will keep them in our prayers. We're going to take a break now, and we're going to be back with Dr. Linda Copeland and your questions, so stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tacs, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Good morning and welcome back to Autism Live. We are here in, via Skype. We have Dr. Linda Copeland is with us. So thrilled to have her back. I remind you guys on a regular basis that Dr. Copeland, she's a unicorn. I have no other words for it, Dr. Copeland. She is both a Board Certified Behavior Analyst and a Developmental Pediatrician. So Dr. Copeland, we know how busy you are, and we're always thrilled when you have some time for us. So thank you for being here this morning.
Oh, thank you. My daughter would love the comparison to a unicorn. That was like her favorite animal growing up. She had unicorn pictures all over her bedroom, and she's my horse person now.
Well, there you go. I do. I always say, you're a unicorn because it's like it doesn't exist, but you do exist, and that's a wonderful thing. And I already mentioned during the show that I'm going to spend the whole morning apologizing because I did not get the questions to you until this morning, but thank you for being the true professional that you are, that you took it all in stride. We appreciate you.
Oh, thanks.
And so I'm going to jump right in here. This was a question that I promised somebody that I would get to because it came in earlier last week. They said, my son has been glancing upwards and winking one eye while he has been sick with the flu. He does this intermittently. Is this common or a symptom of something else? If we need to evaluate, which kind of doctor should we go see? A neurologist? And thank you for your show.
Okay. Important question. And I don't know if he ever had winking before the flu, and now it's come back, or if this is the first time, but it's good the mother's paying attention to it. And certainly if it's associated with eye pain, I'd have him seen right away, maybe starting with his pediatrician, if there is pain involved. If it's just winking and looking up and not pain, but it continues even after the flu is gone, I would say that I would need further evaluation. I don't think it's common. I think this is a little bit of an unusual history. Now, kids can suddenly develop tics for no apparent reason, and a tic is a neurological symptom. It's an involuntary movement. So the looking up and winking one eye could possibly be a tic, and tics are fairly common in kids and might start to happen when there's an illness. They can kind of come and go or wax and wane. maybe as he recovers from the flu and he's better, it'll just go away, and then all is fine. But if it still keeps coming back, a neurologist is actually a good place to start if it might be a tic. If there starts to be any swelling or involvement of the eyelid or vision concerns or whatnot, another possible doctor that the pediatrician might refer to as an ophthalmologist, an eye physician doctor. But I think starting with the pediatrician, and then my next step might be a neurologist. And between the pediatrician and neurologist, they could decide if they need an ophthalmologist involved. So hopefully it will resolve itself.
Okay, great. I'm going to move on to our next question, which is a very interesting question. For Dr. Copeland, does excessive bubbles in urine indicate anything? My 14-year-old son tends to wait a while before going to the bathroom. His pediatrician doesn't think it's an issue and I would like to have your input. Are there any tests you would recommend? And thank you. Bubbles in the urine.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on where the bubbles occur. So, and then how difficult the hesitation is before he urinates. I think it's pretty common that for some boys, they just have to focus a moment before they get their urine stream started. But if it's uncomfortable, if it's difficult to get the urine stream started, and he's feeling some discomfort with it, and there's these extra bubbles in the urine, if he's having burning in urination, then as you know, I like to involve the primary care doctor, the pediatrician, as much as possible. And so, oh, hold on just a minute. I'm getting some things on blocking my screen. So just a basic test, if the pediatrician hasn't done it already, and it's an inexpensive test. A lot of doctors' offices can do it right there in their back office, and it's just a urine dipstick urinalysis to see if there's any abnormalities, any crystals, any white blood cells, any red blood cells, that sort of thing. And something the family could do at home would be if they had a little urine cup and if he captured a small amount of urine in the cup and let it dry out, if there were a lot of crystals, that sometimes that could be oxalate crystals or calcium carbonate crystals. That might be a little clue that there could be something going on that needs further workup. And then a rare thing, and there's no good reason for a 14-year-old to have it, but if the bubbles are coming, like he's getting air in his urine coming from the urethra, like at the tip of his urethra, the tip of his penis, and there's air mixed in with the urine, that is abnormal, and that should be followed up on. There should not be air bubbles directly in the urine coming out directly from the body. So it's one thing if there's a lot of bubbles in the toilet, the pediatrician may be right, it may not mean anything. Could mean there's some crystals issues. So you want to see if there's some high oxalate foods in the diet that might be causing that. But if there's air mixed in with the urine right as it's coming out, and it's kind of hard to urinate, you can get what's called a fistula, which is an abnormal connection between the intestines and the bladder and the urethra for some reason. And the air would actually be coming from the intestines, and that would make kind of air bubbles right as the urine emerges. That's, again, rare. We don't see that often in children, but something to think about.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more questions that you guys have sent for Dr. Linda Copeland. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. Today we're going to talk about the 10 steps to empowerment. Step number 1, accept and embrace this challenge. By telling you to accept and embrace the challenge, I don't mean you have to love autism. Let's get this straight. I love my child with autism, but I hate that autism stole a big part of his childhood. When I look back at my journey, I realize that I knew in my gut that my son was regressing at the age of 2. I had a hard time with acceptance. It didn't come easy for me. My denial may have stemmed from the fact that I didn't want to go through what my own mother had, raising a child with Down syndrome with no support. I even equated my mother's alcoholism with her being stuck at home with a disabled child. I didn't want that life for myself. I couldn't believe that having lived through the experience of having a brother with special needs, I was now faced with having to raise my own child with special needs as well. But being in denial did not make the truth go away. It's when we can accept the truth that it can set us free. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us via Skype Dr. Linda Copeland. She is a Board Certified Behavior Analyst and she is a Developmental Pediatrician. And if that weren't wonderful enough, and I call her a unicorn because it's like, wow, these two amazing things to go together. It sounds mythical, but it isn't mythical. She's not mythical. She's here with us and she's answering your questions that you guys have sent in. So, Dr. Copeland, our next question is, I'm wondering if you've talked about GI issues with children with autism, and they said my son is 8 years old, nonverbal, and has GERD as well also. Maybe you could start by telling our other viewers what GERD is.
Oh, okay, GERD is gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it's pretty common. It seems to be increasing in all people, and it's pretty common in autism. So it's basically acid reflux, digestive acid reflux, which can cause heartburn symptoms or kind of painful swallowing, you may feel it as a bubble coming up from your stomach. It can present in a number of different ways. And it seems to be pretty common in autism spectrum disorders as well as the general population. So it's something that pediatric gastroenterologists treat. Mild GERD, the primary care physician, whether it be a pediatrician or family practitioner, may treat it as well. So it's usually treated with antacid medicines. And of course, the GI issues are huge in autism spectrum disorder, and they can be very ranging and variable. So to the extent that we can look at diet to see if that might help, and there's a variety of diets. You can go with low yeast diets, the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free may be a good place to start. But some children need more. Some specific foods may be irritating them. One thing that can cause pain, GI pain, is too many oxalates in the diet. So sometimes you want to see if they have a craving for certain foods that are really high in oxalates. A lot of those foods are often healthy foods, but if they're eating too many of the high oxalate foods, it can aggravate their symptoms. So like beets, carrots, and celery, hey, they're good vegetables, but if they're eating too much of those combined with citrus, plus pomegranate, plus raspberries, plus almonds. Almonds are probably the nuts that are highest in oxalate. When we think of all of those as being healthy foods, if that's like some of their favorites and they're eating them every day, that might be a further aggravating factor. So consulting with a nutritionist might help to see if that could help manage the GERD in addition to taking antacid medication. And then the other thing is elevating the head of the bed so they're not sleeping so flat. Might be some ideas to address those issues.
And then in terms of, in general, for gastrointestinal issues, this is a very hot topic right now with autism.
Oh, yeah. A lot of research going on with it.
And it seems like for a lot of...
Well, I tried my attempt to keep movement going here, and my lights went out. Let me get the lights
We
out.
love that Dr. Copeland is so environmentally conscious that she has her office lights on a timer so that if no one is in there, it will automatically turn off. And you see her little Airstream streamer in the back. She's got her green streamers. This I thought it was ingenious that this was that we were hoping that was enough movement so that it wouldn't go off. But I think it's a great reminder of how environmentally conscious you are. So I applaud that.
I'll have to do my exercises. As I
There you go. When we take a break, we'll have you do jumping jacks. But in any case, we were talking about GI issues. That we see that a lot of kids on the autism spectrum have issues with their gastrointestinal system. It's not unusual, and there's more and more studies that are being done on this.
Yes. Yeah. And some of it may be genetically based and some might be environmentally based. We know there can be issues of yeast overgrowth. There can be issues of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or what we call SIBO. And symptoms you'll get a lot of gas, a lot of bloating. You may get alternating constipation and diarrhea. And that's where paying close attention to the diet can be really helpful, and trying to get on one of the healing diets. Children with autism spectrum disorder, especially when they're very young, and I'm going to be moving around here, may be very picky eaters and may kind of crave the carbohydrates and just eat a very limited number of carbohydrate foods, and that will kind of contribute to these problems of yeast overgrowth or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because the unfriendly bacteria and the yeast feed on all those carbohydrates. So we really need to get a healing diet that's nutrient dense, with a good source of protein from lean organic meats, grass-fed meats, good sources of healthy cold pressed oils, and gradually increasing the variety of healthy vegetables and fruits the child will take to kind of manage those challenging GI symptoms.
Great. And we're going to be hearing more about GI issues, because there's a lot of studies that are being done right now. A lot of people spending a lot of money on this subject, GI issues and autism. But this next question kind of goes hand in hand with this, Dr. Copeland. It says, Dear Shannon and Dr. Copeland, is it possible to have too much probiotic? We're battling yeast and want to increase as much as possible. What are the symptoms when it's too much? And thank you. Can we have too much probiotic?
Yes, potentially, and it depends. There's a whole variety of different kinds of probiotic, and this is not an exact science yet, but what we're looking for, you've got a sense that you've got the right level of probiotics. If your child is able to have a stool every day, if it's kind of a soft formed log, kind of medium brown in color, and regular, those, if you've been giving some probiotic and you kind of reach that and there's no more GI discomfort, the excessive gas and bloating have gone away, you're probably doing a pretty good job. But if you give too much probiotics, sometimes you can get an imbalance in even the good friendly bacteria might end up being where they're not supposed to be, too high up in the small intestine, and that's what we mean by a small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. And then the symptoms would come back of the gas, bloating, abdominal discomfort, and then you might start with the alternation between the constipation and diarrhea. And also, depending on the probiotic, some children might not tolerate a certain brand. So you may have to, go with the good ones from Claire, other good brands, but you might have to try and explore several. And then you want to read the ingredients, and also think about doing natural fermentation if your child can tolerate that, and getting some probiotics that way. So naturally fermented homemade sauerkraut. The cabbage has a natural lactobacillus on it, and if you chop it up fine and ferment it in purified water and sea salt, you get a tremendous dose of probiotic, even more than in the commercially prepared probiotics. if your child can tolerate that. So you look at their response. If they immediately get diarrhea and a red bottom, you know it's too strong for them. And you're looking for a balance of lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, and you can eat, since you're battling yeast, one probiotic that's a bit unusual you could consider is an anti-yeast fungus that is a healthy probiotic, and I'll hold it up. I don't know if you can see that. It's called Saccharomyces boulardii. I don't know if you can see the spelling of that. So it actually is a yeast itself, but it's a friendly yeast, and it's been studied in children. You can give it at a dose of 250 milligrams twice a day. So you might use yeast to battle yeast. The bad yeast is the candida. That's what you want to get rid of. So a little bit of the Saccharomyces boulardii may make it so that you don't have to do too much of the other probiotics. It's really, you kind of have to experiment with it and see how your child does the best, because it's so individual from person to person.
I have the Saccharomyces, I can't say it, the Saccharomyces boulardii, whatever it is, in my refrigerator. And I have bought it 2 times now. It's not inexpensive, I will say this. And I have been about to give it to my son, but then I always look at it and it says it's yeast. And I think, oh, I'm trying to get the yeast out of him. And I've always chickened out. But it's a yeast to battle a yeast. So I could give it to him.
Right. It's like the firefighters who battle fire by making their own little fires to make it a firewall. It's that same idea. This is a friendly yeast that is anti-inflammatory. It also fights the toxins from bad bacteria. And it's been researched for over 50 years. A lot of studies, even in very young infants and children, as a helpful probiotic. So, you know, not every child is going to tolerate it, but they'll have it out of their system in a few days if you stop giving it. So it may be worth a try in your yeast battle.
Okay, and I want to go back to the fermenting things a little bit, because I think this is an area too where I've tried to make the sauerkraut on my kitchen counter. I need to take a class because I think it's a little bit more involved. But I do want to say that in my experience, I haven't been able to make it on my counter, but they do sell, if you go to health food stores, ones that have been fermented naturally, that haven't been heated to kill anything off. You can tell that it's one of the right ones by the price, often because they are infinitely more expensive. You can pay $8 for a little packet of sauerkraut, but even in the past, I've given my son a teaspoonful of it, and it's made a difference. And I also love Bubby's pickles, which are naturally fermented. There's no vinegar in them whatsoever. And the difference between if I give my son a Bubby's pickle, which has been naturally fermented, and he does better for a couple of days, whereas if I give him a regular pickle, that will leave a red bottom. So interesting.
Right. Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. And with me being a working physician, I don't have time to do my own fermentation. So it was a huge discovery for my husband and I when we discovered Bubby's. And so I shop at Nugget Market, and I think Trader Joe's and Whole Foods also carry Bubby's products.
And Sprouts carries
they do
it too,
have a natural sauerkraut as well that is delicious. And as you said, it's not heated. There's no vinegar in it. There's no sulfite or other bad ingredients. It's just cabbage, water, and salt. And it's totally delicious.
It is. It's good stuff. And it doesn't take a lot. I think a lot of us, when we think sauerkraut, and we picture, those giant hot dogs with this, a pile of sauerkraut or on a Reuben sandwich. But even a teaspoonful, I found, makes a difference for my son. And you can sprinkle it on something, the juice or, anything that you're making for them, and put it across the top, and it gives it a little zip. I think they quite like it.
Yes, it's
a good
delicious.
Thing. And then if you get into I know people who are really into the fermentation. I just haven't been able to make it work. It's on my list of things to do, though.
Mine too.
Right. We'll take a class together, Dr. Copeland. I think it sounds really fun and save you a lot of money if you can do it on your own, and a very good health thing. But we should take another break, and then we're going to be back you'll move around. We'll be back with more Dr. Copeland after these messages. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in. Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back. We are here, Autism Live here with Dr. Linda Copeland. She is both a Board Certified Behavior Analyst and a Developmental Pediatrician, as I like to refer to her as a unicorn. But it's a wonderful service to our community that she's here with us on every 3rd Tuesday to answer your questions. And usually I get them to her well in advance, and I did not, which is my bad, and I've apologized to her and to you, but I did get them to her just a little while ago this morning, and she was a real good sport about it. So, Dr. Copeland, our next question. Hi, guys. Love this show. This question is for Dr. Copeland. My 4.5-year-old son always complains when using the toilet to do his bowel movements. He says it's hot or itchy. The consistency is not rough or liquidy. He's not constipated, nor does he have diarrhea. He seems really uncomfortable while sitting on the toilet, plus fidgety. And his bowels are really big, long, and thank you so much. And I always say, usually I do a disclaimer before I read this kind of a thing, but you know, this is, we keep it real, as I know a lot of you are moms and dads out there, but you know, we sometimes you just got to talk about the poop.
Right.
With
and
no
I'm a physician, so I'll take it in professional stride.
Yes.
So this is a very interesting problem because she's not describing either constipation or diarrhea, and he seems to be having long caliber stool, but he seems uncomfortable or if in pain. And I had mentioned previously oxalates, and that is making me wonder if oxalates in his diet might be the problem. But I should also, there's always a differential diagnosis in medicine, and you want to make sure there's not just some explanation just locally right around his anal area, the perianal area, that might be contributing to the discomfort. So it's worth taking a look at his bottom when he's taking a bath, or you helping him dry off after the bath and so forth, just to make sure there's no rawness, redness, that may be a sign that he's having irritation. Surprisingly, you can actually get strep bacteria as a strep infection in the perianal area, just like you get a strep throat. And it can make the skin very itchy and painful and uncomfortable. So it would obviously be painful to have a bowel movement there. So the clue to it is you would see a ring of redness that looks very sore and irritated, even raw. You might even see some little, what we call excoriations with blood spots, and strep can do that. Less commonly, and I don't want to worry parents, if the child is not itching first thing early in the morning, even before they hit the bathroom, then you don't have to worry so much about pinworms. But pinworms are another thing that's pretty common in children. It doesn't mean the household's not clean. In fact, pinworms like to live in cleaner houses. the telltale sign of that is early morning itching. They'll feel the itching really early as they wake up, and that may make them a little raw and uncomfortable. There's an easy slide test for pinworms that the pediatrician can do, and there's an easy treatment for it. It's a pill called Vermox, and you should just take one pill now and a week from now. But chances are it's not that, especially if he's not having early morning itching. So back to the oxalate issue, it might be worth consulting with a nutrition, because one thing that high oxalates in the diet will do is it can cause pain anywhere. And it's often kind of a burning nerve pain. It can cause burning with urination, but it can also cause this burning nerve pain with bowel movements as well. And I mentioned earlier some foods that are high in oxalates. So some vegetables would be beets, carrots, celery, field greens, spinach, sweet potatoes, Swiss chard. A lot of these vegetables we think of as healthy vegetables, but if he's eating tons of them, plus tons of fruit that are high in oxalates, like citrus and kiwi and pomegranate and raspberries or blackberries. And then maybe he likes nuts like almonds and peanuts. And then if you're trying to do gluten-free and you're doing things like amaranth, buckwheat, and quinoa, he may be getting higher oxalates than you realize, and that could be contributing to the pain. If you go to a nutritionist and the nutritionist suspects there are high oxalates in the diet, you don't want to abruptly decrease the oxalates all at once. You want to do a very slow, gradual reduction by about 5 to 10%. Week by week, because you can get oxalate dumping, which would further contribute to that pain and discomfort with the bowel movements. But that's just, and I don't know for certain that's what it is, but it's something to consider.
Wonderful. Thank you so much I'm learning lots today about oxalates. Excuse me. Our next question. Hello, I wanted to ask Dr. Copeland, how can I do a urine test to check for lead and mercury using DMSA pills? My son is 5, and I just wanted to know if he has any high levels of mercury or lead in his body. Also, how safe is chelating, and what is a better natural chelator or a prescribed one? I see. What is better, a natural one or a prescribed chelator? And thank you so much.
Okay. I would say for parents to take my answer with a grain of salt. Different medical doctors have different perspective on this, and I'll give you my perspective, and it's just one perspective. Parents don't have to agree with it. Their doctors may not agree with it. But I'm cautious with chelating, and I'm a bit skeptical about the work that's been done with chelating and autism. It is true that heavy metals like lead and mercury are neurotoxins. And it is true there is mercury neurotoxin in vaccines, like in the thimerosal, and that was not good, and it was important to get that out of the vaccines, and it's not fully been removed. And there is some correlation between some similarities, but also some differences between the neurologic problems that come from chronic or acute mercury poisoning in children and the symptoms that we see in autism. But unlike a number of doctors who are autism experts who do the chelation, I'm skeptical that heavy metals are the major cause of most autism spectrum. And even with the vaccine issue, you know, the jury's out, but who knows the mechanism of action with the vaccines? It may be more immunological and not as related to the thimerosal, though thimerosal did need to come out. So I'm not convinced that chelation is safe and or needed in autism. And even if it were to work, I think mobilizing heavy metals in the body could maybe when you're trying to move the heavy metals from one place to another in the body, that does additional damage. We don't know yet. I think we need to do far more research. So I'm very cautious. I do not prescribe chelation, but if you have a doctor that does and you're seeing results, there's so many different kinds of autism spectrum disorders. So that's why I say take my answers with a grain of salt. And we all need science. We need more research. I think science will guide us in this. But what if you do suspect that your child's struggling with detoxifying, and of course we're all exposed to heavy metals in the environment, especially lead, I would recommend blood tests, not a urine chelation test. So there is a blood mercury test, there is a blood lead test. Sadly, every one of us has a little bit of lead in our bodies, which is not normal, but lead's everywhere in the environment. You just want to make sure the level is below 5 when the blood test is done. Above 5 means you got to do environmental changes and repeat the test. And then if there was a really high level, chelation has been done for acute lead poisoning in children, but it's usually done in the hospital under very controlled circumstances if there's acute, severe lead poisoning, which I've not yet seen a case of in autism. So maybe I'll stop there, and there's more that can be said, but I'll get your response, Shannon.
No, I really respect you saying that and asking for caution. I will tell you that I am in the same camp. That when Jem was diagnosed, I was interested in knowing what was going on with him, and we did a lot of tests that were blood tests to be able to see things. But I certainly have heard things about chelation, but it was never something that I was interested in discussing, just because I know that it's a very serious medical thing,
right.
And that there have been situations where kids have. I'm not a doctor, but I believe in the whole thing of let's not do any more harm. And
yes, do no harm.
Yes.
And that's the oath that we as physicians have to practice under. There have been some deaths in children with autism related to intravenous chelation.
Yeah.
One was from an anaphylactic allergic reaction to the chelating substance, and there was another death related to electrolyte abnormalities that then led to heart rhythm problems. A heart arrhythmia developed, and that proved to be fatal. So certainly the intravenous chelation is a concern, and I don't see real strong evidence of dramatic results on the core autism symptoms from chelation from the literature that I've read. But I will be attending a MAPS conference in March in Costa Mesa, and I'll be learning more about what other doctors who are autism experts are doing.
And of course, every case is different, but I appreciate your overwhelming message of caution and further educating yourself, because it's a serious thing. This is a very serious thing. But we're out of time.
Okay.
But I thank
you. It goes by so fast.
I know it goes by so fast, but I thank you so much for all of your time and your wisdom and for being here. We're going to look forward to seeing you again in March.
Great. I look forward to it too, Shannon. Have a great month.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We're here at the end of the show, and I just wanted to take a couple of seconds to remind you guys about things that are coming up the rest of this week. So first, because it's, we weren't here yet, so I want to especially cue you into what's happening tomorrow. Dr. Doreen Granpeche is here. She'll be answering your questions in real time. Then we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My co-host for that hour, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, will be here with me. Our very special guest for tomorrow is Marcia Hines. She is the author of the book, I Know You're In There. So we're really looking forward to having her on the show for the very first time. Then on Thursday, unfortunately, we don't have Dr. Adele Nadowski. She won't be with us, but we are going to have Kara Kozinski, who's been with us before on the show. She's the Pocket OT. She's going to be with us to talk about 10 tips for having a great play date when one of the individuals on the play date is on the autism spectrum and the other one isn't. I cannot wait for Kara to give us these 10 tips. I'm really looking forward to it. So that's also on Thursday, and then we're going to be welcoming back, I believe, we're keeping our fingers crossed, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, who has a new baby girl at home that he's been home with, but that he'll be joining us again supposedly on Thursday. I don't know whether that'll be via Skype or in person, but we appreciate you guys writing in your questions for any of the guests that we have coming up this week, and we hope that you'll participate. I want to, a couple of things here that other people had written in specifically for me over the weekend, that somebody wrote in and said, how can I get on the mailing list? If you are on our site, on that whiteboard that's at the top over the computer screen, there says join our mailing list. Join there, and that will get you on the mailing list. Somebody else wanted to know, how can I find the book on swimming written by Tammy the Swim Chick? If you put on our YouTube page, Tammy Swim Chick, you should be able to find the videos, but I believe it's on Amazon, and the title of the book is Autism and Swimming. So you should be able to find it there, but let me know if you didn't, and I'll make sure to find you the Amazon link to that. And somebody just wrote in for Dr. Copeland about their daughter has bad eczema on her scalp and inside elbows. Can you tell me what I can do for her scalp to get her relief? And we'll save that for Dr. Copeland for next month, but I will tell you that my son had terrible eczema issues. We got a prescription for it, a non-steroid cream, but there are steroid creams as well. And if she is not allergic to almonds, it's very important to know if she's allergic to almond, but sweet almond oil is something that's very effective. We used to put it on his scalp when he was a baby. But we can't do that anymore because he's now developed an allergy to almonds, and I don't know if it was because of that. So use caution with that, but it worked on eczema like a charm. It was like the best thing ever. All natural. Burt's Bees carries it. We're totally out of time, but I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate you and care about what you have going on. Thank you for being here with us. We want to thank our fabulous guest today, Dr. Linda Copeland. Don't forget, write in your questions for Dr. Doreen for Ask Dr. Doreen tomorrow. Are we out of time, Kelby? We have 10 seconds. Okay, so please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.